I'll repeat this after we have other folks joining, but we will be recording this, just FYI. Seeing some familiar names and faces cropping up here. Just want to give another minute or two for folks to hop on. Looks like we got about close to half the folks who registered, so I just want to give everybody a fair chance to join. Hope everyone's doing well, thawing out. Been an unusually cold winter, it seems like. I might have scheduled this for another day if I knew this would be the second 60-degree day in a row. Oh
It's
well,
a
living
welcome change.
right. I assume everyone can see my screen at the moment. I tested this earlier and it looked like you all would be able to see it, but I just want to make sure. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. I think people will keep popping in here, but good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for this intro to department websites and content creation. We haven't done one of these in quite a while. I'm Andy Smith. I'm a member of the Trinity web support team. With me on this in this meeting is Haley Warren, the Director of Digital Strategy in Trinity Communications. And joining us a little later will be David White, who's the Senior Manager in Duke Web Services. Also not with us today, unfortunately, is Alex Verhoeven, who is my colleague on the web support team. And he's just someone else when you email that Trinity web support group. It's he and I and David and a few other folks are made up, we're all part of that group and get those emails. But I'm sure he'll join us on some of these future training sessions. So today we're going to be reviewing the content editing tools available to you as a site editor so that you will feel empowered to make changes to your website with confidence, accuracy, and without taking up half your day. We're going to start with a brief introduction to the Drupal content management system. I'm going to go over some common terms and concepts and we'll talk a little bit about what your website is for and what it's not for. We'll touch briefly on web accessibility and what that means. And then we'll do some demonstrations, including using the formatted text editor where you can make, add tables, add images, make text bold, italic, whatnot. We'll go over the process of adding just a basic page to your site. We'll cover something called paragraphs or content paragraphs, which just can add some flexibility to your pages and your layouts. I'll go over adding a news article, which is one way you can add news to your site. Um, we'll look at categorizing a faculty member, and then lastly, we'll look at how to decipher and fix accessibility issues through the tools we have available as site editors. Um, lastly, we will provide some guidance on where to go for help because I know sometimes that's not clear. Is it a web support, technical issues? Is it a communication support? Is this something with scholars? Is it something with, the Duke event calendar? We do plan to leave some time for questions at the end of the hour, but if you have anything as we're discussing these, everything, if you have any questions that come up in the meantime, drop them in the chat. And if there's a opportunity, Haley will be watching the chat, and if there's an opportunity to interject and ask us questions and discuss it, we'll get to them as we can. So first of all, what is Drupal? You hear us talk about Drupal a lot. You get emails from me saying, "Hey, we're doing a Drupal update tomorrow morning." So Drupal is a content management system that allows users to create and manage digital content, uh, and it features powerful content editing tools, including a formatted text editor and revision history. Now, when I say digital content, when I use that term content, what am I talking about? I'm really talking about uh, um, material that communicates meaningful information or an idea. And these can cover, these can be images, text, any number of things. I've got some examples pointed out there. Um, Trinity's implementation of Drupal includes because integrations with several Duke-specific services such as Scholars at Duke, the Duke Event Calendar, and Duke Today. Now, the web support team and the communications team, we don't we don't support Scholars at Duke. We don't support the Duke event calendar. We don't support Duke Today, but we are a good resource to help troubleshoot issues when if you're not seeing something that you would expect coming in from Scholars at Duke or from the Duke event calendar, we're certainly there to help troubleshoot those issues. So let's look at some basic terms and concepts that you often hear thrown about when talking about Drupal. So first is the notion of a content type, and you can think of a content type as essentially a template for a specific type of content. Kind of a weak definition, but I think that you get the point. These content types consist of fields that are necessary to create a specific type of content, such as a news article or an event. Um, a paragraph type, I touched on that, mentioned that earlier. It can be thought of as a sort of a smaller template for an element of content that can be associated with one or more content types. Once we get into the demonstrations, we'll go through adding a what's in Drupal speak known as a paragraph, a content paragraph. A node, you often hear when someone's talking about Drupal, is a distinct piece of content that is based off a content type on a given site. Now, a node is often referred to as a page, um, but in reality, when you're looking at a web page that's built in a Drupal site, typically there will be the node represented, but there will also be a header and a footer and maybe a sidebar navigation, maybe another right-handed sidebar that all sort of are, and it's an amalgamation of these elements to create a page. At the heart of that is the node that you would be editing when you click the editing tab. A view is a list of nodes that meet a defined set of criteria. So a common example is a list of news articles or a list of events or a list of people on the site. So those are often referred to, that's what is known as a view of nodes of a given specific content type. Uh, a menu is a mechanism by which a user navigates around your site or by which an editor navigates through the administration interface. Um, so when you're looking at a Trinity supported Drupal site, you'll see more often than not a main navigation running across the top of the page. Once you're on an interior page, you'll probably see that sidebar menu that's the secondary, not the secondary, but the children of whatever section you're in. So that's a menu, and that's when we are looking at adding a basic page, we'll talk a little bit more about menus and how you get that page that you're adding to be represented within the menu system. You can find a lot more top terms and concepts on our training and documentation site. I've included the web address there, Duke.is. If you're not familiar with the Duke URL shortener, duke.is/Drupal. It'll take you right to lots more information if you're so inclined. Now, these terms and concepts that I'm bandying about with wild abandon, it's not something that you need to know as an editor when you're going in and trying to change a word on a web page, but it's just good to have an overall sense of what you're talking about when I come to you and say, "Are you having a problem with this? Or are you having a problem with that?" And I'm using terms that it just makes it a little bit easier for us to communicate. Certainly when we're talking about introducing new functionality. So, what is your website for? It's got many purposes, but generally speaking, it's to educate prospective students, probably their families, about your department or program. For example, requirements for your major and minor. It's a tool to promote courses, the accomplishments of your faculty, staff, and students. It's also just a great way to tell your audience about news and upcoming events. Um, that's my limited scope on what I believe these sites are for. I'm going to let Haley have a moment to talk a little bit about her thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. So he gave a really great summary, but the main idea we really want to emphasize when talking about our websites is we need to think first and foremost as these as marketing tools. And so these are not necessarily places where your internal audiences or your faculty are going to find every piece of information they might possibly need. This is primarily a way to get information out about your programs, about your departments to the students, to the prospective students, to their families. Then you mentioned all of those audiences that maybe we don't think about as much when we're thinking about like the content that goes on the website, but those audiences are really, really crucial for thinking about the kinds of content. And so that's why we don't emphasize a lot of content that is specifically for just the internal department. So you'll see a lot of times like syllabi and things go in different places, often behind a box folder, whereas your website is for the purpose of showcasing what's new and exciting about the department.
Perfect. Thank you, Haley. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about accessibility. Now, what do I mean when I say accessibility? In this context, we're talking about making sure that people with disabilities, whether it's visual, auditory, physical, cognitive, have the same experience, the same access to the content on your website as those without these disabilities. So we've put a lot of effort into making sure the websites that we support are accessible to all audiences, and we provide tools to help content creators or site editors produce content that is accessible. Some of these considerations include making sure your images have alternative text. What's alternative text? That is the text that someone, a low or no vision user, may be using a screen reader. That screen reader's describing the page to that low-sighted person, comes across an image, and it reads that alternative text to give that person an idea about what it is, what's on the page at that point. A dog chasing a ball in a green field. There's blue sky with, it's always good to be, as descriptive, but, within reason as well. You don't want someone sitting there for 2 hours listening to a description of your image. Trying to avoid images that have text as part of the image, embedded within the image, unless it's decorative. So, for example, a word cloud. If we go back a couple of slides, um, this here is a word. On the right side of the screen is what's known as a word cloud. So you see that often a lot. But as long as you have that alternative text describing what it is that is on the page, you just want to have an image that you are relying on the person to be able to read that image to get the meaning from about that image. Um, Always providing text alternatives for audio and video, whether that's captioning or transcripts for that content. And then just lastly, there's many more than this, but I'm just sort of touching on some of the high level stuff. Using descriptive link text when you're linking to something. So rather than saying click here or read more, including, something that says for more information about this subject, please see the, the Department of whatever website. So many of these considerations are simply handled by the way these sites have been configured. For example, when you're adding an image to a web page, that alternative text that I talked about, that's required. Um, so you won't be able to add an image to the page without having that alt text there. We'll look at this in a minute, but when you're logged in, you will have access to a tool which flags potential accessibility concerns. Now, that tool is going to sometimes flag things that you as a site editor can fix. So an example would be if you have a heading 2 on the page and you skip from heading 2 to heading 6, that tool is going to say, "Hey, are you sure you don't want to have a heading 3 before you just jump to heading 6?" And that's just and so that's something you would be able to address. It will likely flag things that we would need to address, and we certainly want to hear about those issues if you come across something that you're not sure how to fix, or or if it's something that, if it's flagging something you just cannot fix, we definitely want to hear about it. It will also flag things like that just take a human judgment. So, if it comes across a video or a Word document that's embedded on one of your web pages, it will flag that as hey, you need to make sure that this PDF or this Word document or this video is accessible. If it's a video, does it have a transcript? If it's a PDF, is it an accessible PDF? We won't go into all the minutia around creating accessible PDFs in this session, but that's something to be aware of. Um, on this slide, you'll also notice a link to the Duke web accessibility site. Specifically, that short URL will go to the how-to guide on creating accessible content. So that's a good resource for future reference. All right, so let's take a look at some common tasks. We're going to look at, as I think I mentioned earlier, we're going to look at using the formatted text editor, the rich text editor. You often hear that referred to as a WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get. We're going to create a basic page, and we're going to add that basic page to the menu system so that a user could actually get to that page. We're going to add a content paragraph to that basic page. We're going to create a news article, and I'm going to point out something when we're at that step where to do this, I'm not going to be editing the news page, but rather adding a news article. And there's a specific, rather than editing your news page, you're actually creating a new piece of content, and we'll get to that. And then I'm going to look at categorizing faculty members. That's something I think that comes up quite often. The members that we get from scholars at Duke, they come in with a certain amount of categorization, but we've provided some mechanisms for department sites, a given department, to categorize those faculty in a way that makes sense to them, or in a way that just doesn't exist from those profiles that get imported from scholars at Duke. And then lastly, we'll look at interpreting the editorially warnings. The editorially is the tool that you will have access to when you're logged in that will flag potential accessibility issues. And then you can, we can click through and see, well, what are these problems and what needs to be addressed. So without further ado, I assume you all can still see my screen here. So I'm just going to log into our sort of our base Drupal site, Department of Stuff and Things, where this is where we build out new functionality. This is where we do a lot of our testing. This is where we just, if something isn't working quite right, we'll try it out here and see if the reports that we're getting are true or if is what do we need to fix. So I'm just going to log into this site with the same role that probably 90% of the folks on this call have. Because I want you to be able to see I'm going to be able to show you the experience as what you would see when you're logged in. All right, so log in with our test account. I sort of just flew right through that. Notice what I did was I scrolled to the very bottom of the page and there's a net ID login button. You'll see now that I've logged in, it says log out. That net ID login button, if you're not logged in your site, it'll be on any page throughout the site. So you don't have to make sure you're back on the home page to log in. It's whatever page you're on, just scroll to the bottom page and log in. Once you logged in, you'll see that, change to the log out button. Notice here there's some other things I can see on the screen here. I've got this administration toolbar. If I click the manage button, I'll open up this little shortcut, this little tray here, and I can toggle between these shortcuts and the management shortcuts. Um, I've got these little tabs here on the page with an edit tab, so I can edit this particular page that I'm on. So let's just quickly go into my About page, for example, and I'm going to click the Edit tab to go into the editing interface. And so the first thing I want to look at is using this rich text, this formatted text editor, again, often called WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. You'll notice it's loosely, roughly, kind of like it has some of the same sort of formatting tools that as you'll see in Microsoft Word. I can make bulleted lists. I can make uh, yeah, I can indent some of those lists. I can add a block quote. I can add some images. I can embed a video. I can embed audio. I won't go over all of these tools, but we'll just take a look at this. So, if I highlight 3 academic divisions, I can then highlight the bold and make it bold. I can change some of these headings if I will, if I want to, by using the this particular the format menu. I've got some styles here. I won't go into all the various styles that we can look at. But we can, yeah, we do have all of this documented. Um, I can insert a link. So if, I want to link to the arts and humanities, I'm not sure what that link is, but I'm just going to guess and this can be just copy and pasted in from your browser. In fact, maybe I'll just do that. So I'm going to link arts and humanities to the actual arts and humanities webpage on the Trinity Duke EDU site. Oop, I think I put that in the wrong. Yeah. And so now this is a hyperlink to the Arts and Humanities page on Trinity Duke EDU. Let's see, we can embed an image. So if I want to embed an image, I can place my cursor roughly where I want that image to be. I click the embed image button and I come up with here's some images that have already been added to the media library. I can select one of these and insert it, or I can add a new image. So let's go through that process real quick. So now I'm going to choose a file from my sample images. See if I can find something fun. Uh, this isn't fun, but it's a nice image anyway. It's the Duke Chapel. So I'm going to give this image a name. This will just be how you can search for it in the media library. Here's where the alternative text is required. So I'll put the Duke Chapel in the spring. Uh, that you can get as descriptive as you want, but I mean I think this is probably sufficient. Notice that I didn't in my alternative text, I did not put image of or photo of the Duke Chapel. That's because screen readers will preface the alt text with image of or photo of. And so if you add that to your alt text, someone's screen reader come along and say image of the Duke Chapel. So it's just, you're just causing some redundancy there. The other thing that I learned not too long ago was that it's important to put a period at the end of your alt text, and that will cause that screen reader to pause for a moment before moving on to the next element on the page. So it just gives the person using that screen reader a chance to say, okay, we're moving on. All right, so I've got the name, I've given it the alt text, I've uploaded my image. I'm gonna go and save that image. Click next, and now I have some options here. We've got all this documented in our media section on our training and documentation website, but we basically just need to figure out, well, what aspect ratio do we want to choose for this photograph? So I'm just going to say I'm going to use the 4:3 landscape aspect ratio, and I want this floated to the right. So now when I click, and notice here I can also put a caption for that image. I'm not going to bother doing that right now. And when I click embed, we can see now that image is floated to the right. It's in that roughly 4:3 aspect ratio, 3 units high to 4 units wide. Um, yeah. So, adding in a video is a very similar process. We don't have it's either going to be with the options when you embed a video, it's only going to be, you don't have the option to float it to the right or to the left. It's always going to be centered, but you do have some width options there. Same with the audio. And then same with, when you're embedding a Word document or a PDF, for example, it just provides a link to that file, which you don't align it to the right or align it to the left as you would an image like this.
If I can jump in to add
Yeah.
something, Andy. So once you've done this part with the photo, if you see it and you say, actually, those dimensions aren't what I want to change it, you can click the little pencil icon that you see right there, and it will
Yep.
bring you back to the editor and you can redo and reconfigure the sizing. So if you're not locked in once you add it as one dimension.
Yep. So there I've switched it now to the 3:2 landscape and changed the size from medium to small. Um, and then when I click save, we can see now, okay, I've changed that heading. I now have this linking to the Trinity Arts and Humanities page. I've got my image embedded here. Um, Yeah. So that's using that rich text editor. And we have all those tools documented. So we just need to, so I can share those. If you use one of the shortcuts I think I have in the presentation, you can find this information. But if you can't find it, always reach out.
We can
So let's
also, oh, sorry, I was going to say, we also call out, we do have a lot of this documentation at the top of the editing pages. So on this one, you can find an easy way to get to some of the resources.
That's excellent. That's a great. Thank you. This is something we added fairly recently. We have this little instructions that you can toggle. You can collapse to hide it if you don't wish to see it. But this links to creating a basic page with that documentation. So that's a good. Thank you for pointing that out, Haley. So the next thing I want to demonstrate is this notion of creating a basic page. So to do so, where on this where do I go to do this? I don't edit this page because if I edit this page, I'm just going to be modifying an existing page. I'm not adding anything new. So to add a new page, I'm going to go to content, add content, and in this case, I want to do a basic page. A basic page, for lack of a better term, for lack of a better basic page basically is a catch-all. It's the content type that you use when you're not trying to add a specific type of content, such as an event or a news article. Um, So I'm going to go ahead and click basic, add a new basic page. You can see we still have those instructions here. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that since I'm not interested in seeing that. So here we give it a title. You can see it's required by the asterisk there. Here is my great new page. We can add a symbolic image. That symbolic image isn't shown on the page, but if someone were to share the web address for this page on social media, that symbolic image is used in the post in the associated post. If that uh, platform is supporting of an image in that way, we can add the body copy here. Um, I'm just going to add a few lines. Again, we can make stuff bold. We can add lists. We can add links and so on and so forth. I'll touch on all of the various tools there. And so now, I've got my title. I've got the content added to my body. But how do I get someone? How would someone access this page and practice? So this is where the menu settings come into play. And what I want to do to make this to provide a menu link is to toggle that provide a menu link option on. You can see here the menu link title. That's what the viewer will see as the link as the text that they're going to click on to get to this page. I can shorten this at this point if I wish to. So I can say great new page instead of here's my great new page without affecting, my page title. That just, makes it, sometimes it's desirable to have a shorter link text for the menu. I can add a description if I want to. That's not required. But when you mouse over it, it will, and I think screen readers will also read that to tell the user a little bit something about what they're going to get when they go there. Now, here's where you decide where in the hierarchy of your site I want it to show. So if I leave this as main navigation, it'll just become one of those items in the main navigation that's running across the top of the page. But in this case, let's just say I want to make this a child of my about stuff and things section. So I'm going to go and click that. So this will be a child menu item. Um, and then once I click save, we can see now, okay, here is my great new page. It's in this about stuff and things section along with the other one, two, three uh, child pages of the about stuff and things section. Um, yeah, so that is the adding a basic page in a nutshell. Let's quickly look at adding a paragraph or a content paragraph. And that paragraph, that has a very specific meaning when writing content, but within Drupal, the notion of a paragraph is essentially like a smaller template that I can then use in conjunction with a basic page or certain other content types. And you can see here when I'm in the editing mode, I can see, okay, here's my paragraphs top section. So I can add a certain number of certain types of paragraphs to the top of the page. We've got two other paragraph sections here where I can add a paragraph body and then a paragraph bottom. I'm just going to go ahead and add one to the top of the page. I'm going to add an image feature static, or I'll do a parallax one. That's kind of fun. So I'm going to add a image feature parallax, and I need to add a title for what is this? The administrative title doesn't show up on the front end when a site visitor looks at this page, but it's just something that you'll see when you're logged in as an editor to help you know, oh, what's behind this door number one paragraph. I can put in here. I'm going to use the Duke Chapel image again. I'm sorry, I just like that image. I'm going to use it again. So I'm going to put in Duke Chapel. We can add some copy to this image. This will go over on top, which will overlay on top of that. Now, I know I said earlier, don't use images with text embedded, but in this case, the image that I put in this copy field won't be part of that image. It'll just be overlaid on top of that image, so a screen reader won't have any problem reading that text. So I'll just put in here, it really is a beautiful chapel. Chapel. And now I'm going to choose that image. I'm going to use the Duke Chapel image again. There it is. And now I'd still need to provide this image description. In this case, this is the alt text. So I'll put in here the Duke Chapel in the spring. I know it's pretty much what I put before, but I think it works. All right, so now I've added everything that I need to add for this image feature paragraph. And when I click save, we can see now I've got this image. There's my copy that's overlaid on top of that image. You can see it has the little parallax effect where the image appears to stay stationary as you're scrolling down the page. Just kind of a unique, um, don't have to use that. I think in a short page like this, it probably been just as fine to add the static image. But anyway, so there's a static version of this where the image moves with the rest of the page. Um, we have all these paragraph types documented on our training and documentation site. So, if you're trying to use one of these paragraphs and you can't figure out how to use it, certainly reach out to Trinity Web Support and we'll help you figure it out. Let's now look at adding a news article. So again, I mentioned when I'm adding a news article, I'm not going into my news page and clicking edit. What I'm going to be, if I were to click this edit page here, I'd basically be editing this. I don't see any of these news stories here, but I do have a body field just like I do on any other basic page. But what I'm going to want to do is add a new story to the top of this page by going to content, add content, news article local. Now, when I say news article local, what that means is that most sites, certainly most of the department, certainly all of the department sites, I think, are importing news from Trinity, from the Trinity main Trinity website. And the way that happens is uh, a story will come in from Duke Today, for example, and the communications team will look at these imported stories, the stories that have come in from Duke Today, or they may just create a story directly on Trinity, on the Trinity main website themselves. Whether it's coming in from an external source or whether they're adding themselves to trinity.duke.edu, they will tag that story in a specific or categorize it to be fed out to the physics site or the dance program site or what have you. And then that side of that news article get imported to the respective sites where they've assigned it to go to. By using this news article local, you have the ability to add news articles to your site without, because I think they've got a lot going on, so they may not always know when you have a new something exciting to share about your department. So I'm gonna add a news story to this site, to my Stuff and Things site. Let's say Andy wins the downhill. That's terrible spelling. Sorry, I should have been watching it. Say Professor Professor Andy wins the downhill. Um, you could put in a byline. You don't have to. Notice the publish date is the defaults to the date that you're writing the story, but you can change this to, you can say, well, I actually this was something that happened on Monday, so I'm gonna post date it or pre-date it. Um, you can give it some categories if your site has set up to, say, okay, within this section of the website, I want to show all the news stories that's categorized this way. Similarly, research areas, if your site has a research section, you can, and your site is configured to show research news within those given sections, they can, this can be used to set that up. Um, if you're unsure about some of these things with your site, that's a great question, great time to reach out to the web support team, or the communication team in that case. I'm gonna go ahead and add an image. Maybe I'll try to find something different than the chapel this time. I don't think I've got a picture of a downhill skier, but I'll use this cat. That kind of looks like me. Um, all right, so I've got my headline, published dates defaulted to today, but I set it back. I'm adding an image. I can add an image caption if I want to. Isn't this a great look? All right. And we have some options here about how that image is going to display when this news article is viewed. I'm going to leave it as float right. I can also hide it if I want to have just like a video at the top of the page, and that image only shows as a thumbnail on the news listing page. But right now, I'll leave this as floated to the right, which is the default. Now I can add in here is the main news article. Here's the main news article. I'm just going to paste that in a bunch of times. All right. Now, just real quick, I'll touch on this external article. If there's a story in the, whatever, some external news source, let's say it's in the Duke Chronicle or it's on, New York Times, what have you, you can add the link to that external article here. And when a user is looking at your news list page, that list of all your different news articles, the headline will then link off to the external article as opposed to the story directly on your site. So it's still important to put in something in the body field here because that sort of will give like the user an introduction to what it is they're going to go. So if they click on this, I'm going off to the New York Times site, they still have something they can read before they actually decide to pull the trigger and go off to a different site. All right, so I'm going to leave that empty for right now. I've got my headline, got my published date, got everything else. I'm going to click save. And we can see here now, okay, here is that image floated over to the right. Got my headline, I've got the published date. Here's the main content. And now when I go back to that news page, and again, this is a view like we sort of talked about earlier. We can see, the headline links to this story, the image links to the story, and we've got this read more link. Now I know I said earlier, to have your link should always have descriptive text. So what we're in the background that a screen reader would see, but that sighted users do not see, behind that link or included within that link is hidden text that says read more about Professor Andy winning the downhill. So that's what I say when a lot of times, and that's why we're not seeing a little, any issues with this page is because, okay, if this just said read more, there would be a little issue flag here saying, hey, read more isn't very descriptive. You need to fix that. Um, all right, so we'll quickly move on to categorizing a faculty member. So I've got my little people section set up here where I've got primary faculty, secondary faculty, emeriti, graduate students and staff. If I go into primary faculty and I see this view of imported profiles, and oh, lo and behold, I see Juanima Lubiano is an emeritus. So I wanted this technically Juanima is primary, but the Department of Stuff and Things, they want to show their emeriti on a different page. So what I can do is edit Juanima's profile, and using this local category, I can say, okay, I want to move them to the emeriti page. And now when I click save, I'm going to go back to that primary page, but Juanima is no longer listed here. But if I go now to my emeriti page, we see Juanima along with William and Richard, who were previously tagged as emeriti. So that's a pretty simple example. I think some departments get a little there's any number of ways this can be sliced and diced, and I think most the majority of departments, they'll show primary faculty, secondary faculty, joint faculty, but there are some cases where you do have we do have the capability to get a little bit granular with this, but I mean I think always keeping it simple is probably a smart thing to do. So let's go back to my about stuff and things page. And we're going to look real quickly at the editorially. Uh, you can see here on, let's see if this page is a clean page. No, that one's got a problem too. Let's look at, I think my news page was happy. So yeah, I got this blue check mark. The editorially tool is telling me no problems here. If I go to my about stuff and things page, it's telling me, oh geez, there's a problem here. So it's going to tell me where I can click this and it's going to say where's the error on the page, and it's showing me was a heading level skipped. So the page title is always a heading one that's reserved. You can't make anything else a heading one on a page. And I need to look and see, well, why am I getting an error here? So I can click the edit button here and I go in here and lo and behold, yeah, that's a heading three. So while it's not, going to break the site, it does makes it a little bit harder for screen readers to and search engines especially to interpret the content that's on the page. So it's always a good idea, rather than just choosing the heading six because you like the way it looks, always go from heading, your next heading on the page should be a heading two. Now, if I had a subsection for this, I could add a heading three here. And that's going to be fine because I've already used my heading two and I'm going to heading three. Now I could now after that go back to heading two, but what you just don't want to do is, as you're thinking out the structure of your page, you want to try to make sure you're following. If okay, heading one, that's my page title. The next heading on the page is going to be heading two. So if I go and click save now, we should see that I'm getting a clean report here in the editorially tool. So that is things in a nutshell. And again, I think you will find whenever you see this little icon, if you're seeing the issues flagged, sometimes it'll say, "Hey, you need to make sure this video has caption," or "You need to make sure this PDF that's embedded is accessible." But there may be times when you see something that it will say. Uh, Something that you cannot fix. It's not something that you will be able to fix by editing a given part of the page. And in those situations, by all means, reach out to us. So I think that was it for the demos. I did include on the slide deck here this link, duke.is/how to Drupal. That will go directly to our training and documentation site where all of our how-tos are listed. But if you can't find the answer there, we definitely don't want you banging your head or spending longer than you probably should trying to figure out how to do a specific task. So always reach out if you can't find the answer to your question, or if something's not behaving the way you expect it to behave.
There are a couple of questions in the chat about some of these things if you'd like, Andy.
Sure.
Rebecca asked if your website does not currently have categories for professors as shown, how can we create the categories?
So what you can do, let's say, so for example, like within the people section, you didn't have, let's say you went into primary faculty and you say, well, I want to move this person to a different page. But that page doesn't exist. Let's say there's this Emeriti link didn't exist, and you go in to edit a given profile and you don't see that category listed here. Um, what you can do is go into structure and go into taxonomy and you go into local categories. And so let's say I could say, I'm going to put left-handers as a new category. And now I'm going to click save and go to list. So now I can say, oh, now I've got Emeriti, left-handers, and I've got these other two that are already in there that I don't think I'm using. So now when I go back to the site, I can say, oh, Charmaine is left-handed. I'm gonna categorize them as a left-hander. So I can go now left-handers, and I'm gonna click save. Now, one thing we'll see here is that Charmaine is no longer on the primary faculty because we have categorized them as a left-hander. So they're no longer here. Now, what I still need to do then is create a menu link on this side uh, where that I'm sorry, where the left-handed people will show. So to do that, I would go into structure menu. Actually, I'm going to copy this link real quick. Copy link address because this would be a very similar exercise. I'm going to go into menu, main navigation. I could have gone to add link there, but here's the button I want to do. So I'm going to click add link. I'm going to give it a title of menu link title of left handers. And now I'm going to put in what I copied, but instead of Emeriti, I'm going to put in left handers. And this has to be spelled in the same way as you spelled your term, although this, note that the space is replaced with a dash. And now I want to make sure this, I don't want this showing up in the main menu, but I want to make this a child of my people. So I'm going to see if I can scroll down and find, yeah, there's secondary fact. So there's my people menu item. So I'm making this a child of the parent people. Now when I click save, notice if I scroll down to people, we got people, primary, secondary, and where's my left-handers? It's down here. Okay, you can see we've got a lot of other disabled menu links. So there's left-handers. Now if I go back to my site, we can see, okay, I've got primary, secondary, emeriti, and now I've got, oh, left-handers. I'm gonna click left-handers and I will see Charmaine because Charmaine was tagged as a left-hander. Does that answer the question? So that's something that you all have the power to do. That is also something that we're happy to help with. And I think I don't want to put words in Haley's mouth, but that is something that communications, I believe, also helps advise on. I don't think they would think adding a page for all your left-hand employees is a good idea, but it's always a good idea to have, to have those conversations if you can.
Yeah. In general, if you've got questions about what should be on menu items, we're always happy to help brainstorm or discuss that some. One more question that I think might be relevant to this section that Dorothy asked about adding, if there's a way to add an event to the homepage featured news. There isn't a way to directly do this, and Andy, if you've got a different idea, the easiest way would probably be to use that external link feature of a news item. If there's other content on your website you want to point to from your front page news, you can add the link directly in that external link that we showed. So that you made a
Yeah.
face.
No, no, no. I'm
Um,
agreeing. I'm
yeah.
agreeing there.
So that's so Dorothy, I'm also happy to work with you if you have questions about that specifically. And then Rena, I see your question about files for creating websites. Andy, I think we might can touch on that at the very end about when to go with sites to do or sites to do pro or express versus when to talk to Trinity development about a website.
Makes sense. So we just have a couple of more things to look at. No more, I don't have any more demos to show, but I think we do. Just want to touch on two quick things before we start to wrap up. Um, so again, we don't want folks banging their heads, spending too much time trying to figure out how to manage this content. So always do, reach out if you can't remember or can't figure out how to go about making an update or something's not behaving the way, our documentation purports. So here are just a few examples of when to reach out to communications versus web support. So, I think this happens not infrequently. You're given a Word document and asked to put this on the website. But, is this a news article? Is this a whole new section? That's a good opportunity to talk to the communications folks who can look at that and then, and it may bring something to their mind like, oh, wow, we didn't even know this was happening. This is great. Well, let's help you figure it. And they may want to do something about it on the Trinity site as well. Let's say you see a story on Duke Today and you think, oh, that story is about this faculty member who's in our department. How can we get that news article onto our website? That's another good opportunity to talk to the communications folks who can help make that happen. Let's say you've got a section of your website, the graduate section, and you really just need to rework the entire section, reorganize stuff. That's something that communications, and stop me if I'm overselling. Um, that's another opportunity for communications to get involved. Or, for example, the books that you see on a lot of the department websites, those are coming in from Trinity's, the main Trinity site. So if you know of a book that's recently been published by someone in your department and you want to make sure that book gets included on your department's website, that would be a time to reach out to the communications folks who can get that content added to Trinity and categorized and tagged properly so it gets fed out to the appropriate places. Now, when to contact web support, let's say, again, the editing interface isn't behaving as you're expected or what you're seeing in our documentation. A new faculty or staff member is not appearing on your website. Why is this? We can help look and this may be a scholar's problem, maybe somewhat some other problem up the chain. Maybe it's a local. Maybe there's some local categorization that has to happen on your site, and you just have forgotten that. That's a time to that's a good point where I can look in and sort of dig under the covers and figure out why something might be happening. The dreaded white screen where all you see is the website is encountering an unexpected error. If you see that, certainly reach out to the to communications to the web support folks so we can look into what's happening. Because if it's happening to you in that case, it's probably happening to more than one person. And if you're unsure, always start off with web support folks. And again, there's our ubiquitous email, trinitywebsupport@duke.edu. So just in conclusion. Drupal, you'll hear us throw that word around a lot. It's a content management system that the Trinity College of Arts and Sciences uses to create the department websites that are engaging, accessible, and easy to maintain. Hopefully, easy to maintain. This implementation includes integrations with university systems such as Scholars at Duke and Duke Calendar. Editors can log into those websites and make changes to existing content or add brand new content. When doing so, accessibility always should be a consideration when you're updating or adding content. And Trinity Web Support, that's me, that's Dave, that's Alex, who isn't here today. Uh, and Trinity Communications, we're both resources to help you as site editors make sure your sites are up to date and accurate and accessible. So. And if you, I'm just going to throw this out there. If there are any other questions, now's a good time to start asking if you haven't already asked. And thank you again for joining us today. If you have any if you have an idea or a topic that you would like us to cover in future sessions, please let us know. And I will say, it may be that we hear some questions here that we may think, oh, that we can't really answer that in the next 10 or 15 minutes. So let's start, let's get that on the books for another time. Thank you guys so much for hopping on this afternoon. That was really, I enjoy talking about Drupal. So if you ever see me on the street, hit me up, ask me a question. I'll try to get it right. We will, yes, we did record this and we will make this available. How can you find where links to a specific page exists so you can avoid broken links throughout your, that's a great question, Mara. So we do have a broken links report. I don't know if it's available in this shortcut here. Um, but yes, we do have a broken links report. If I go to our training and documentation site, drupal.trinity.duke.edu, and I go into my how-tos. I can't remember this. I'm just looking for managing broken links. So here we talk about, how to access. We do have a report. How do I get to this? Um, it should be listed here. Here we go. So when you're logged in and you go to your shortcuts, there should be a broken links report menu item in here. If there isn't, all you need to do is add admin/report/broken links. And then this will show you, okay, here's a news article imported that has a broken link to this Citizens and Scholars. Now, since this is an imported article, there's not a whole lot you can do. You could, if this is an article that was imported from Trinity, which it may have been, it's possible that communications might be able to go in and fix that broken link. I would suggest not worrying so much about the news article broken links, just because that is going to happen over time as news stories get older. But you can, also filter to say, well, let me show me all the broken links that are on my basic pages. And then you can go in and, yeah, so here's a broken link, Goole. Me or whoever did this obviously misspelled google.com. So I could go in and I could edit this basic page and then change the link to Google. So find it. Yeah, there it is. So it's not Google. I can edit this and say google.com and I'm going to update that link and then save it. And I don't think it's going to automatically, it's not going to automatically take that. Oh yeah, it did. That was pretty quick. So now you can see that link has been removed from a broken links report. Let's
And
see.
there's this question about printing a web page and the content gets rearranged. I'm not sure that that's something we can solve for right now, but
So it would be helpful to get some an example of what you're referring to. What we've done, we do have a print style sheet that is intended to strip out things that don't necessarily make sense on a piece of paper as opposed to on a screen when you're looking at the web page. So we strip out some of the navigation. But if there's something that that it doesn't get if it's not if so I see there yeah, so you're referring to the microscopy user's manual. So that's something that I we could certainly take a look at and make sure that that things are getting not stripped out, or it's possible that we've got things floated in a specific way when you're looking at the screen, but that doesn't make sense on a piece of paper. So we need to add something to our print style sheet, so that that float is ignored or just removed altogether. So I will take a look at that. And Yashing, if I think I could probably take a look at one of your existing users manual to figure out, where, to find an example. But I may hit you up and say, hey, can you tell me what exactly you're seeing that doesn't align with what you expect? So yeah, we will have some more of these coming up. I think the plans to do these roughly once a month. I can't remember what our next topic was going to be, but again, if you have any ideas or want to share, hey, we really need to know how to do this. We would like you to spend more time on creating a link. We'll we can look at or maybe we want to have another session on using that rich text editor. We do have a few ideas in mind for the next several months. But it's always good to have folks chime in with specific ideas. Um,
Andy, I know we're past time, but if Rena is still here, do you mind, and this might be for David a little bit too, to talk about when people should consider sites at Duke versus when they should reach out for asking about a Drupal site?
Sorry, couldn't find my mute button there. Um, I can't. So, when should people reach out for a site's a Duke Pro site?
Well, the
Um,
question was if there are instructional files for creating websites, so I feel like it might just be helpful to distinguish between what websites we might be able to create and which ones they should go through one of the site's options.
okay. I think reaching out, kind of starting the conversation with either Trinity Web Support or Duke Web Services would it's kind of get the ball rolling to, hey, I have a website need, and then we go from there as far as you know, helping meet those needs and seeing, do you need a Sites Express site, a lighter WordPress site? Do you need a Trinity Drupal site or like a heavier Sites Do Pro site? Is that was that with the question?
That's where I was taking the question.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, so the answer is that for our Drupal sites, there's documentation for all of this on the sites Andy's been showing. But if you're wanting to create a new site, I think probably starting with reaching out to web support to figure out whether
Yeah.
that's going through one of those options or going through our internal systems.
Right. And that's a great starting point, I think, and we can connect you with the right people depending on your needs.
well,
And
thanks again, everyone. I know we probably didn't get to every question, but I can save this chat and circle back with Haley, um, in case there's other things we need to address. Um, I actually have to bounce off for another meeting here in a few. But thank you guys so much. Thanks so much for joining us again. And I hope that was helpful. I will share this recording as soon as it becomes available. And we'll look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, everyone.
thanks.
Bye.